Hello, my name is Vyacheslav. Today we are going to speak about my first impressions of coding with new Apple M1 processor, and is it really worth upgrading right now or should we wait? A few words about me. So you know, my name is Vyacheslav. I'm iOS developer from St. Petersburg. It is in Russia. I'm coding for iOS for almost 8 years now, and I work at Joom. Joom is a leading European marketplace specializing in cross-border sales, and especially for today's event we prepared a little promo code for attendees. You can scan QR code and download app I'm working on. So today's plan is the following. First is the intro, why I'm interested in the topic, how I decided to try it right now, and so on. The second thing is what it actually takes to build your application on a new M1 chip. And third topic is it really worth it? What benefits will you get? And finally we will come to some conclusion. So let's go to the intro. Our story begins on June 22 when Apple announces its movement to Apple's silicon chip. They said that they will be transitioning within 2 years and first laptops will be available by the end of the year. So they promised, and they kept their promise. On 17th November 2020, they presented M1 chip with 8-core CPU, built-in memory, built-in GPU, neural engine, and blah 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 blah. We all read that and we all know what it is. And they announced a first shipment of M1 enabled Macs, including Macbook Air, and it was ready for shipment in Russia on 7th December of 2020. And it happens that also on 7th of December 2020, it is my wife's birthday. So it seemed very nice coincidence, and also taking account that I broke her laptop's keyboard a few months ago, I decided that it will be a lovely gift and also a good opportunity for myself to explore new technology. So we have a new MacBook Air with M1 chip in our family, and I have winter holidays to check if it is good opportunity for me as a developer or not. And first I need to get all the things I need for my daily duties on this Mac. So what I really need? Of course I need Xcode, I need Cocoa Pods, I need all the stuff that is required by Cocoa Pods. I need also some binary dependencies for build scripts. Also I need, of course, some applications for developers to check the stuff. So let's start with the easy one, Xcode. It is Apple software running on Apple hardware. It is fully compatible and it is fully ported, so no problem here. You just open App Store, download Xcode, open it, install command line tools, and that's it. Another thing is a homebrew. By the time I checked it, ARM support was experimental, and moreover, not all packages were ready for Apple Silicon, and it is a major problem. For example, right now you cannot install Java using Homebrew. You can use this QR code to check the current status on the GitHub, but right now the easiest way to use Homebrew is use it in compatibility mode. It is pretty easy. You just need to prepend every your command in terminal with a designator which tells which architecture you'd like to use. But the thing is, I'm pretty lazy and I'm not going to write such many commands each time, and also I have some scripts that should work without any modifications. So there is also another option, is to make running the whole terminal in compatibility mode. To do this, you need to open terminal in Finder, right click, get info, and tick this option, open using Rosetta. Easy and quick. So when you open a terminal next time, it just thinks it is running on Intel machine, and everything you run is running in Intel world. Is it okay? I think yes, because it works pretty well. The only caveat is that when you install something, it usually depends on a lot of other packages, and some basic ones are usually included in the macOS or command line tools like SQLite, Git, and so on. This time you have Apple Silicon macOS version, you have Apple Silicon command line tools, and when you run terminal in compatibility mode, it doesn't know anything about it. So I launch my homebrew install and it tells me that I don't have command line tools, even I installed it 20 minutes earlier. So what should I do? I just install command line tools again from command line in terminal in compatibility mode. So I have a set of 2 command line tools, one for Intel world and second one for Apple Silicon world. And the same with each dependency. So when you start to download some package, it takes a bit longer, for at least for first packages, because it downloads dependencies that it usually doesn't download because they are included in Mac OS. Also, I got some warnings that, for example, for SQLite, having 2 different versions on the same machine isn't supported mode. So I think it might bring some problems in the future when we need to upgrade or something else, but right now it's just okay. I'm just keeping my eye on it. Well, when we have Homebrew, CocoaPods, and all other developer tools, let's check if it is okay with developer applications. So actually here I have only 2 words on my slide, no problems. I just download them, I just open them, and I don't even know if it runs in compatibility mode or natively. Of course, I can know it if I go into details, but I don't need to. It simply runs as usual, even complex applications like Proxyman, which requires access to my network layer and network drivers. It runs smoothly and I don't need to check anything here. Well, once we are all set up, we can try to build our first project. If it is a simple one, for example, some blank project that you just created, or your home project, you will not experience any difficulties. It builds okay for simulator, it builds okay for device, it builds okay for archiving. I didn't experience any problems with any sample project or any of my home projects. However, Joom is a bit more complex project. It has a big dependency graph and it has a lot of binary dependencies, and here I had some problems. First, obviously you know that iOS simulator on Intel machine and iOS simulator on M1 machine are not the same iOS simulator, because we don't have emulator, we have simulator. It means that code compiles natively, not for the iPhone but for our computer, and we have different architecture here. So personally I had a lot of problems compiling for iOS simulator, my project, and up to now I didn't solve them. I think I could solve them if I want to, but it wasn't really necessary for me because I'm okay with running it on a device. I just need to check that all my dependencies that are binaries, that they should contain a binary for Apple Silicon. However, even when I built for device, I had a single problem with one single dependency which didn't link even for device build. I don't know why. It seems like a bug in early Xcode version, because I'm sure that I had all necessary architectures inside it and it builds okay on Intel machine for device, but still I couldn't build with it. Hopefully it was used only in one file in the project, so I just switched it off and proceeded. I think I could request a new version of the binary from the vendor if I needed to, but for now we have 8 developers in our team and I'm the only one who tries to work on M1, and it is even not my work machine, it is my personal one, so it's not the time. It takes a while to prepare for building your application for a device. It will take longer to build for simulator, but finally we achieved it, and let's figure out, is it really worth it? Apple promised us 2 things. First is speed and second is power efficiency. I was comparing my work laptop, which is MacBook Pro 2020, 16 inches, 6-core processor, 32 gigabytes of memory, and it costs almost 2,500 euros. And my personal MacBook Air 2020 with M1 chip, 8 gigabytes of memory, and it costs a little bit more than 1,000 euro. From this table, this comparison doesn't look equal in any way. But if we switch to another table, we can see that it actually builds my project faster. It's not mind-blowing faster, but it is faster. It is faster by almost 30% for clean build and by almost twice for incremental build. When I first did my measurements, I was very surprised. I wasn't so surprised when I started to just work on it, perform my daily duties like implementing new features and fixing bugs, because when you just work on it, this 30% doesn't really feel like it is super faster, because still for most builds it is taking more than 1 minute, and you have a time to check your email, go to have some coffee and so on, and after that you don't feel this difference really sharp. But at the end of the day you found that you did a bit more, and it is very pleasant. It's pretty amazing difference in the build time. But wait, some of you may remember that MacBook Air doesn't have a cooler fan anymore, so it should eventually get overheated and start throttling, and my build time will be slow and slow and slow. So I made an experiment. I was sitting in front of MacBook Air and pressing build button again and again for 40 minutes, and I didn't get any significant difference in the build times. The slowest one was just 10% slower than the average. The opposite, my MacBook Pro, which has a fan and it sounds like it is going to blow off anything from my table, has very big fluctuations in build times. It can be as little as 33 seconds and as much as 50 seconds. So nearly twice. And it was maybe the biggest surprise from MacBook Air. I was expecting that it might be fast, but I wasn't expecting that it will be so stable in thermal ways. now we know that new MacBook Air is definitely faster than the old generations of MacBooks, but what about power efficiency? And again, it wins. I wasn't patient enough to make precise measurements, but what I can say is that if I take somewhere my MacBook Pro and start coding, usually I have hour and a half or maybe 2 hours before I don't have MacBook Pro with me. I just have a dumb piece of aluminum. I tried 2 times to take MacBook Air with me, and both times I was coding more than 2 hours and still had about 45 or 40% of battery remaining. So I think it will not allow you to take it to work without charging, for example, but it definitely gives you much more flexibility. Okay, now it's time for a conclusion. I have demonstrated myself that even now we can use the latest hardware in production, but it will take some time and effort to implement some workarounds, to get new binaries and so on. The second thing is that even entry-level laptops on new architecture can beat high-end machines on the older one. So I personally won't use my MacBook Air for my work right now, because I just don't want to spend time on fixing little compatibility issues. I think they will be fixed very soon because I see very fast speed of adoption of this technology. And the second, I'm going to wait for really pro machines on new architecture, because given how promising it is, I think there will be no choice in terms of speed between Intel or Apple Silicon when the Pro models will be introduced. That's it from me. Thank you, and I'm ready for your questions. And don't be shocked when I have a different t-shirt.